Hey guys, it's Alex. Welcome back to the channel. It's the spring market in Victoria, BC. The cherry blossoms are out, and just like that, everyone and their dog is thinking about buying housing once again. Is it the housing market that all these realtors are telling us that it is? Hot market, multiple offers, buy now or buy higher. I'm not so sure, but there are a few examples, like this one, that are giving myself and some buyers some forms of PTSD after the experience that we had through the pandemic. Delayed offers, multiple offers, properties selling for 6 figures above asking. That one in behind me here in Esquimalt sold for $150,000 above asking from 7 offers. Is that the norm? No, although we are seeing more competing offers as we've moved from January into March. Is it going to be the trend as we move through April, May, and June? I'm not so sure, but in this video I want to unpack the stats and give you a little bit more context for where I think we're headed over the next few months. It's important for me to note that although I say more multiple offers are happening, different segments are moving in different ways in Greater Victoria, whether it's condo, townhouse, or detached home, especially in different neighborhoods. So in this video, I'm going to zoom in on detached homes in the core being Victoria, Esquimalt, View Royal, Oak Bay, and Saanich. And then I'm going to zoom back out and take more of a macro picture to forecast over the next few months. Speaking to the zoomed in picture and detached homes in the core neighborhoods, the list price to sale price ratio is shrinking, meaning people are offering or bidding closer to asking. The frequency or pace of sales is increasing and more properties are selling quickly, and more properties are selling above asking than they were in the winter or even into last fall. As examples of that, properties selling above asking, we had 26% of all of the detached home sales in the core selling above asking in March. Looking back to October, only 13% of those homes sold above asking. Looking back a few months to December and January, a lot of those home sales that occurred within a 2-week span were between 21 to 25% of the total sales for those months. And looking to March and April, we've gone close to almost 50% of the homes selling are within that first 2-week period. And in December of 2022, properties were selling for 4.2% below the list price on average. And here in March, properties were selling for just 1.2% below the list price on average. That's not just because people are pricing more effectively. Although the median price points for a lot of those different segments that I track have been relatively flat, the core neighborhoods and detached homes in the core neighborhoods have actually risen by 13.3% since December. Why, you ask? There's just not much quality out there right now, and anyone that's looking for a home within, let's say, a 30-minute drive of downtown Victoria and is in the detached variety, the quality just isn't there. And when people are sitting and waiting, and have been since September or October of last year, the patience at a certain point begins to run out. I talked about this with some clients the other day. It's kind of like when there's not a very good balance of males to females at a party, and some of the opposite sex starts to look more attractive than maybe they would under a more balanced scenario where more of the right options were available. Now, for context to that detached median in the core is also down by about 13.3% since last March. But all the same, the price momentum and trajectory that we've seen has been fueled by a lot of this demand that's been waiting since, let's say, September or October of last year for good quality inventory to show up. It really has not to this point, although I'll talk about the new listing inventory in March being just below our 5-year average. There's still not a lot of great quality inventory out there, and properties that are priced appropriately more than likely have a few buyers sitting and waiting on them. In previous videos, I also touched on the fact that sentiment has improved to a degree where people feel like the worst is now behind us and the best is probably in front of us as far as rates go. The Bank of Canada is unlikely to cut rates. They actually have a meeting tomorrow on April 12th, a day after I'm filming this video, to announce whether they're going to hold or not. Pretty much everybody is expecting them to hold at 4.5%. And because the bond yield has come off and the bond market has started to price in the fact that rates probably aren't going much higher, we will start to see that 5-year fixed rate mortgage across the board start to come down. The thing that I'll add to this that maybe doesn't stoke the fire, so to speak, is that banks usually don't chase those bond yields down and cut those 5-year fixed rates as quickly as they might chase them up as those yields elevate. And because there's some recessionary, job loss, unemployment concerns baked in, they probably are attaching more of a risk premium now and will over the next few months. So are more sellers going to show up to the party in April, May, and June? Remember that our new listing 5-year average over this 4-month span between March and June is just over 5,200. And looking back to March, it's not so bad. We're a touch below what I would expect for a 5-year average in March. The sales volume, on the other hand, is down by a healthy margin, 590 sales versus 788 as a 5-year average. Although some of those months were heavily fueled by the pandemic frenzy, some of them also weren't and were more sluggish years like 2018 and 2019. So in order to get back to that 5-year average, we just need over 1,300 listings in each of those few months. Do I think we'll get that? Maybe, and I think more sellers are feeling more confident in the prospects and liquidity in the marketplace and the ability for them to realize a good sale price for their property because of what's happening around them. And for some of this pressure to come into these neighborhoods and some of these sale prices to appear in front of people, I think more sellers will begin to feel like this is just business as usual. The Victoria, BC real estate market is relatively resilient, and we're more than likely going to be able to get close to what we ask, as evidenced by that sale to list price ratio, than what we would have maybe back in the fall. Now, the absorption rate has begun to creep up in the other direction after kind of bottoming out and hovering between 20 and 30% for the last few months. It started to rise once again, but I'm not sure that demand is going to continue to outpace supply unless we really have a constriction of new listing inventory over these next few months. And I cannot say for sure, but I imagine that this spring will be a steady spring, slightly lower than average sales volume, slightly lower than average new listing inventory, and likely flat price trajectory across many of the segments of the Victoria Real Estate Board. I think this blip with a lot of multiple offers happening in March was really just a snapshot in time and a consequence of a lot of pent-up demand building from the low listing inventory we had through October to present, and buyers sort of sitting on their hands and waiting for the right property to come up and just getting a little bit antsy and impatient and not seeing the home of their dreams. Another interesting bit of news that's come in is David Eby announcing the Homes for People action plan from our provincial government that has some interesting pillars attached to it. Some of the more interesting ones in my mind are the idea of blanket upzoning, rezoning, working with municipalities to provide better solutions for missing middle housing. That would be ground entry multiplex units on detached lots, which really doesn't exist, although Victoria is sort of pioneer as far as the province goes, in that the City of Victoria did just approve their missing middle housing action plan. Whether that pans out remains to be seen, and how it pans out remains to be seen, because there's really not a strategy in place or much context that Eby has given us just yet. The second, and maybe another interesting piece, is the idea of a credit given to homeowners for putting a secondary suite into their property. Once again, the idea of increasing rental stock and giving people more options, which should help to suppress rental prices. And I think, on the whole, the idea of more of these supply side measures is the right way of thinking about it rather than demand side measures. More incentives or making it easier for people to save up and buy housing, I think, has led to a little bit more fuel onto the Canadian housing fire, especially for speculators that can just buy properties, rent them out with the limited housing stock that we have available. One thing is for sure, there's only so much property in Victoria, BC, and over the long term, again, those of you that have watched my videos, I'll say this over and over again, I remain bullish about real estate in our beautiful city. This is the best city in Canada. Feel free to fight me on that. That's my update for April of 2023. I'll be sure to update over the next few months. And once again, if you're new to the channel, make sure you like and subscribe to videos. It helps this get out to more people. Ultimately, this is just about educating people to make informed decisions in the Victoria, BC real estate market. And whether you liked it or not, let me know down in the comments below.